The previous program he was at, the strength training wasn't working for him. He was getting injured from it a lot of times. Some of the movements he was doing was irritating certain parts of his body. And so the first day he came to me, I still remember, we had just had a conversation of, okay, what's working for you and what's not? Because I knew the value of strength training. And like he said, you know, he was not that strong at all coming to us. And then by the time we peaked and tapered, he was doing pull-ups with 80 pounds around his waist. And that's why he was able to get on the Olympic team, because no one going into trials was thinking, oh yeah, Cullen's got a spot. You know, like no one was, you know, he had done some stuff I think 2 years earlier, you know, won world champs, but everybody's like, oh, you know, he's washed up, and he's proven to be able to step up on the big stage. But the strength, I think, was what made such a big difference in such a short span of time to be able to get him on that. And you have to learn to adapt. So just because he was getting hurt in one way doesn't mean, oh, let's scrap strength training altogether. That's not what's working. No, it's maybe the type of strength training you're doing or the way that you're approaching it isn't working. And that's what I hope to show you guys today and tomorrow as we get it. And so you have to remember, it's the questions that you ask is going to determine how you're going to go about this. And so you have to make sure what you're doing is based in science and in results, so in your principles. But your methods and your tactics can change. So again, with Cullen, certain strength training stuff that he was doing was not working. But if we change the method and the tactic, the whole principle still stay true, that if we get him stronger, he will be able to swim faster and be able to get up on the stage. And you know, to be honest, that race made his career. So if you think about it, if he doesn't make the Olympic team, I don't know if he's still swimming 8 years later. You know, so the fact that he got on that propelled him to 8 more years in the sport. So it can be a big difference getting a little bit stronger, and not just on the Olympic level, but for masters. How long can you swim and enjoy it? How can you overcome injuries and stay injury-free? So hopefully over the next few days, we're going to help adjust your grid. And what I think through that is, you know, your knowledge. So maybe you're going to learn more stuff here, and then your experience. Quick raise of hands. How many are coaches in here? And then how many are just swimmers? Okay, so still, yeah, and kind of both, yeah. So both, you know, I'm going to talk to you guys the same way, whether you're a coach or you're a swimmer. You know, the same stuff is going to apply. And if you're a swimmer, you're going to more, okay, have to process myself, how is this relating to me? And as a swimmer or as a coach, you're going to have to process, okay, how is this relating to all my swimmers on my team? But at the end of the day, that's going to hopefully give you guys more wisdom when it comes to the strength training side of how do we get better in the water and how do we prevent injuries. And to be honest, I've changed my mind about some stuff too since, you know, 2008 and other things. And just to give you a couple of examples, I didn't value how much importance it is getting in the right positions. So for instance, back in 2008, 2009, I definitely wasn't placing as much emphasis on mobility or flexibility to get into better swimming specific positions. I was a little bit more of the mind of, all right, let's just do more pull-ups. Let's just put more weight on the bar. And to an extent that does help, but you know, getting someone to pull 80 plus pounds on a pull-up, you start to get a little bit diminishing returns and you have to do other stuff. And so through the years, I've even changed my approach in what I'm placing emphasis on. And another thing too is just improving power and overall rhythm. I still remember to this day, the very first workout I did with Cullen, we did a little exercise where I'm holding a band and then Cullen comes out here, arms are straight, and it's just quick movements back and forth and I'm holding as an anchor. And to this day, I swear to you, the power that was exerted on, off, I mean, it was incredible. And I work with swimmers all the time and it's not even like to that close. So power and rhythm, that ability to be able to train on and off, not just on and stay on, and not just off and never gets that level, but back and forth, back and forth. That, I think, is what separates elite swimmers, but you can also train that to some level in this training.
You talking rhythm, you talking fast?
Yeah, so on and off, or even slower too. Like if you're swimming easy, can you engage with this arm and be completely relaxed with this arm, even though you're not necessarily going fast? So power, I think a little bit more, it's always fast, but rhythm can kind of be changing of the speeds. And so how do you integrate that into Dryland 2 in the strength training to be able to help with that when you get into the water? Because it always comes back to the athlete, right? So you can't, as a coach or even as an athlete, say, okay, I'm going to just YouTube some video or I'm going to do this program and it's going to work for me. You have to think, okay, what's the situation? And a lot of times it depends. Okay? So sometimes you may get a little frustrated. I want the answer, Chris. I want just give me the secret, right? And we'll be done in 30 minutes. But I want to give you guys more a grid to process through and to think through. And then when you are approached with the athlete or you yourself, then you'll be able to think through, okay, I see this, I need to do this situation now, or attack this one. As far as the spectrum of athletes that you're going to come in contact with, whether it's the elite level of competition or the 8-year-old that just wants to have fun swimming, or even the masters that just wants to enjoy swimming and they want to keep doing it, there's one thing that definitely gets in the way, and that's injuries. Okay? And so that's my number one priority when we're doing a strength training program is we want to avoid injuries both caused by strength training and caused by swimming as well. So we want the strength training to combat what you're doing in the pool. Because if you're doing this for thousands of hours, okay, stuff's going to start to go wrong because either some muscles are going to get overworked or you're just going to get out of position and break down. So that's the biggest thing is we want to make sure they're both athletic and strong. And if you're athletic and strong, you're going to be able to withstand injuries more often than not, okay? So we're going to break down what it means. Because some of you might have a connotation of, okay, I see strong or I see athletic and have a certain image that pops into your mind. I want to help you think through that. So dysfunction, if your shoulder is not in a good position, if it is not fully functional, you are more likely to have a shoulder injury. Whereas if your shoulder is in a better position and it is fully functional, then injury is less likely to happen. So I'm not saying it's never going to happen. And athleticism is part of that. So can you move? Are things balanced around your body? That's the goal as we go through the program. And so here's just a couple of examples. So this is a client I worked with. He used to be an elite ballet, performed on Broadway and all this stuff. So not everybody can walk into the gym and perform something like that. So with him, we talk about it depends on the athlete. We did not have to worry about him being mobile or flexible. On the other end of the spectrum, we had to get him stronger and have his body be able to maintain the integrity because stuff was popping out of place or, that was his problem. Versus, these were some of the team elite there in 2008. We would get out of the pool and we would do sprints, skips, hops, so we're talking about the power and the rhythm and the stuff like that. And some of these guys couldn't skip for their life, So that's where, okay, we need to get a little bit more, rhythm. And if you can do it out of the water, you can probably start putting it into water. Whereas if you're in water, you don't have gravity, it's a different environment. It's not as easy to make changes as if we're on land. So if you can learn to develop some rhythm on land and get that down, you can probably start to transfer that into the water. So different spectrums on the athletic field. Do we need to work more on strength and helping maintain that mobility and the integrity? Or, over here, do we just need to develop rhythm? Do we need to just be able to move and make it look fluid? And a lot of times I just have to go back and forth until we kind of look fluid. Sometimes we're just doing more until, okay, everybody in the group's looking like we're doing it in an athletic manner. So I really like this quote, even though it's a little graphic, but stronger people are harder to kill than weak people and more useful in general. Okay? So being strong pays off in a lot of ways, both health and athleticism. And getting strong, though, is where people get off on the wrong path sometimes. I think a lot of times they get too anxious and get too much in a hurry, like myself. Day after my coach, in high school shows me how to lift, and I'm trying to get stronger. Well, I wasn't ready. I didn't have the integrity in my shoulders, and then they get jacked up in a few weeks. So we want to make sure that we don't have weakness so we don't encounter injury. Okay? The other thing, if you're injured, you're not available. I hear it with announcers all the time, like especially on the NFL. Availability a lot of times is how talented you are. If you're not available, you're never going to be talented, and you're not going to be able to enjoy it. You're not going to improve. You're not going to see how high you're able to attain and longevity. So you that actively swim, how many of you can say you've swum, let's say, 2 straight years without injury? Okay. 4? Okay. So we got the room in half. So think about that. Think about that. If you were able to just double the length of time that you swam without injury, how much better would you get? So the idea of strength training isn't let's take time out of the water, but let's give you more time in the water because you're not going to get injured and you're going to be able to keep swimming and actually improve. Because, you know, you can't just lift and then go jump in the pool and have an amazing time. Like, you have to swim, right? And so if I can give you more uninterrupted time in the pool, no matter who your coach is, no matter what your program is, you're going to get better. So that's the bottom line of what I'm thinking of in the weight room. Number one goal, let's keep you in the pool so you can keep getting better and enjoy it. No one likes to be injured and sitting on the side of the pool. That's no fun. So you have to think, too, there's a difference between fitness and strength. In the weight room, we're trying to get stronger. We're not trying to get fitter. And in the pool, you're trying to get fitter. You're not trying to get stronger. When people mix the two, they end up looking like this fish, and it doesn't work. Okay? You can't interchange them and think you're going to get the same results. So that's why you have to have both of these elements. You have to be able to get strong on land and then get fit in the water. And when you do each of those things to the best of your ability, if you work as hard as you can and they're getting strong, if you work as hard in the water as getting fit, that's where you're really going to see the results. And I see when people mix these two, that's when they encounter the biggest problems. When they try to get fit on land and they're doing 100 reps of some exercise, and then they end up getting just as injured as if they were in the pool and not doing exercises at all. Or in the water, if they're only trying to get stronger in the water, they don't learn the movements out here and how to move correctly. Yeah?
So are you using the word fitness as a way to say endurance?
Yeah, more like aerobically, cardiovascularly, yeah. That kind of fitness, yeah, and good clarification on that. But again, time and time again, when athletes or other coaches talk to me about, I see that's the biggest thing is when people are switching these and they're not emphasizing what they should be in the right thing. That's when they start to get in trouble here, okay? So it really just comes down to a balance of the strength and the swim, okay? You have to have a balance of both. You can't be all in the water and never in the weight room, and you can't be all in the weight room and never in the water and expect good results. You have to be able to find that balance and understand that you can only get the benefit in one of those arenas. You can't necessarily cross over.
When you were talking about strength and how that, how people like to mix those, do you still, what's your opinion on doing like strength type stuff in the pool? So power acts.
Yeah. So,
is that good?
No, absolutely that's good. But if that's the only strength you're doing, I would disagree with that, because if you're in the water, you're not able to control the environment as much. So let's say if my shoulder's a little bit questionable and I get on the power rack and I'm doing power racks 2 times a week or whatever, I'm just loading my shoulder more, not in an appropriate way. And so that's why you have to have out here, because in here we can just focus on making your shoulder better overall and then be able to hold that. So yeah, definitely there's a place for power racks, tubing, stuff like that. But if that's your only avenue of strength, I bet you're going to miss out on something and you're opening the door to injury. Okay? No, but great question, great question. And that was a big thing we did with the elite guys too, is on the days we would lift for an hour and then jump in the pool for an hour maybe tops. And that's all we were doing is power racks, running from the pool, doing dives, stuff like that. But it's the combination of the two. You can't just be in the water or you can't just be on land. So I can't emphasize this enough. These are the goals when we were doing strength training. We want to be athletic, and that means not being injured, being fully functional, and getting stronger. And we're going to start breaking this down even more, because you're probably asking, okay, this is great, Chris, but how? How do I do this? This is why I'm here, to learn how.